Speaking of roster moves,
Yes.
KZ Okpala,
Casey?
Casey, whatever you want to call him, at this point, it doesn't matter anymore.
Why
He's no
not?
longer here.
What?
He's been let go. He's going to
No.
have season-ending surgery on his bilateral knee soreness. They're going to go ahead and bring in PJ Dozier for the rest of the season. A lot to unpack here. First of all, the Kings are better off with PJ Dozier. Let's just be honest.
Oh,
PJ
really?
Dozier. The only thing that KZ Okpala has on PJ Dozier is he's 2 inches taller and has 3 more inches on his wingspan. Other than that, PJ Dozier has the experience. He's proven that he can play in a rotation on a winning team and in the playoffs, and has shown to actually be able to have a convincing 3-point shot. He's never shot like over. I think the highest he shot was 35%. His second full season with the Nuggets. That's off the top of my head. But still far more convincing. And before he hurt his ACL, I think in the 18 to 20 games that he played before he hurt his ACL last season, he was hitting his wide open threes, which is all you can ask for. And Okpala, I think we said this last week. I mean, like, good, he made the team, but that kind of seemed like a predetermined thing. Didn't seem like that was going to go any other way. And he ended up kind of being more or less what we thought. So at the end of the day, you are kind of having a better player in Dozier than Okpala. You have any disagreements with that?
At the end of the day, who cares? I assume PJ Dozier will play as much as KZ Okpala. So very little. It's just we're at that point in the season, unless like a major injury happens and like two guys go down, like PJ Dozier isn't going to get much floor time. Like, yeah, he's there for depth just in case. I mean, I think he's behind KE at this point in the depth chart.
Yeah, that'd
Um,
be fair to say.
so and like he's not getting any minutes. So why would Dozier, right? But I
No,
mean,
absolutely. I mean, especially if you have the 9 or 10 guys in the rotation pretty much
mhm,
rolling as they are right now, you're right. But in those situations where you saw Okpala, which would be, perimeter defense is really bad. Teams are getting into the paint, getting to the line, getting spray threes off of paint penetrations, and you need to get 4, 5, 6 minutes out of Okpala. We saw that happen a few times.
yeah. But I
Ahead of
think KE takes that role over now.
yeah. But my point is that you just replaced. You'd much rather have a guy that's been there, that's shown that he can fit in on the floor, and not exacerbate issues such as knowing where to be or knowing the spacing on something, or really he becomes less of a liability on offense. Overall, we were just agreeing on the fact that the Kings, they are slightly better from this move.
You're 100% correct.
Yeah. KZ Okpala though,
Casey.
yeah, KC is got that bilateral knee soreness, and if you look that up, the bilateral aspect of it means it's both knees, and he needs season-ending surgery for his soreness in both knees. I'm not a doctor. I was reading on the Mayo Clinic, um, which again, I don't even know if it had anything to do with what's going on with Okpala. Just kind of a vague injury, just to kind of have bilateral knee soreness, but it's not a major injury because it's just soreness. And if you look up the solutions for that kind of stuff, again, on the Mayo Clinic, it was saying like just resting it, you know, or surgeries and stuff like that that would deal with like bone spurs and like arthritis and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like, it's hard to get a read on the situation. It just seemed like a way, and this might be speculation, to kind of let him down easy.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like knee soreness.
It's weird. And he'd been listed as that like pretty much since late January. I think that was like after he played a game in Stockton. It's bizarre. I guess it just kind of transitions to the next point, because it's bizarre that they went ahead and basically let Dozier go for a month just so they could bring him back for Okpala.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
It's
why
bizarre.
did they do that? If they were just gonna, I mean, everything worked out in the end. It's not, again, it's not like a huge deal. It's not like we're talking about guys that are getting 10 to 15 minutes a night. Like, we're not talking about that at all. But it's interesting, I guess,
It
to
was
say the
kind of
least.
weird that you bring back Dozier after cutting him too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why
Well,
did
it's
you cut?
just like
Oh, you
it's
kind of
just
had to cut him, but
It's just that kind of trust element. I mean, like obviously they like you're making a good point. Like you gave PJ Dozier 2 10 days. You give him the next contract that you can sign him to. You have to sign him through the rest of the season at that point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they brought in Deontay Burton, which is just a placeholder until the trade deadline. Then Edwards takes that spot, and then it was just like they really gave. I guess they were really clutching on to that trust that again comes from Mike Brown. Whether KZ Okpala is hurt or not, we're talking about Dozier being the better player. It's like how much does that trust get in the way of actually making the team better?
Enough. I mean, we're already down 2 Nigerians. And you know what? Props to Chimezie Metu. Coming out of the All-Star break, looked good in the first 2 games. Looked really good against the Clippers when the Kings needed him most. So I'm going to give him his kudos because he played a big role in those overtime games after Sabonis fouled out. So credit to Metu. But it goes back to the fact that these 3 Nigerian national team players made the team, the worst players on the team, in my opinion. Bottom of the roster kind of guys. So it was just I don't know. I've been very critical of all 3 of those players making it, just because it kind of seemed like Brown was playing favoritism in a way instead of like my biggest criticism was not keeping Kent Bazemore and not having a legit backup small forward behind Harrison Barnes. So it's kind of I don't know. Like this is where we're at now. It's like 2 of those guys aren't there. I could see Metu staying obviously out of those 3 just because he's been here long enough. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the
Yeah,
Kings can have a couple more wins if they didn't have Okpala and Maneke for the first half of the season.
yeah. I mean, who knows? Because again, at the end of the day, it's not like the biggest deal because it's not like Kent Bazemore is on another team.
Sure.
I think if he would really had something left, he would have been on another team playing. But it does again point to is something like this going to happen in the future? I mean, I don't know. And it's like this is like Mike Brown's having such a good season. It's like this is the kind of stuff where it's like, oh, I don't know about Mike Brown.
Yeah.
It's not like obviously throwing anything into question about him, but it is one of those things. It's kind of interesting, and it's been one of those things also that's been kind of telegraphed from the beginning. We're like, oh, it's kind of see what's going on here, and it makes sense. You want your coach to have trust in guys, but it can only go so far.
Yeah,
Obviously,
exactly.
as we've seen
Mm-hmm.
before, you gotta make a real decision.